When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject, it watches. User, StuckShuck33. Posted, April 14th, 1999.
I used to think sleep paralysis was just some weird brain glitch, a dream spilling into reality, leftover fragments in the meat of your mind. Maybe that's what it is for most people. A fluke, a one-off. You wake up, see something in the dark, can't move, then it's gone. Harmless. But that night, one night, I learned that sometimes it's not a glitch. Sometimes you don't wake up into a dream. Sometimes something else wakes up into you. It was a Tuesday. Graveyard shift at the Shell on Route 2 had been its usual kind of awful. 3 hours of nothing, a guy trying to buy Marlboros with Canadian coins, and a tweaker who argued with a hot dog roller. I got home just after 7 a.m. and went straight to the basement, my little bachelor cave under my mom's house. Same futon, same lamp with the wobbly neck, same busted TV with the pink line through it. The place always smelled faintly like mildew and something older. Not rot, not exactly, just old, heavy, still, like something had been sitting in the corners waiting. I didn't even bother undressing, just kicked off my boots and collapsed into the futon, letting exhaustion do its thing. I must have dozed off within minutes because the next thing I remember was being awake. Not groggy, not sleepy, just fully, completely aware and unable to move a goddamn thing. My eyes were open, facing the ceiling. The water stain above me looked like the profile of a wolf. I'd stared at it 1,000 times, but this time the edges were wrong. The ceiling shimmered faintly, like heat rising off pavement. My chest felt tight. I tried to lift my arms, shift my legs, scream, anything, but I couldn't even twitch. My heart pounded, but my lungs felt trapped in a vice. I was stuck, frozen. And then I heard it. Click, click, click. A wet, deliberate clicking sound, like someone sucking at their teeth. It came from the corner of the room near the old TV. I tried to look, strained my eyes as far left as they'd go, and that's when I saw it. A tall, narrow shape, darker than the dark, standing so still it looked unreal. It wasn't a man, but it had a man's silhouette. Shoulders too narrow, arms too long, head cocked at an unnatural angle like it had been broken and never healed. It had no eyes, no face, but I felt it watching me, a thick, oily awareness that rolled across my body like molasses. The clicking grew louder, faster, then it moved. It didn't walk. It shifted, like skipping frames in a video. One moment it was across the room, the next it was crouched over me, inches from my face. Its head rotated slowly, upside down like an owl until I could see what passed for a face, just folds of glossy black skin and rows of tiny uneven teeth. Then it opened its mouth. Nothing came out. No scream, no breath, just silence so deep it made my ears ring. And then, in that void, it leaned down and placed one cold, bone-thin finger against my sternum. Pain was instant. Like it was reaching through skin and bone, digging for something. I wanted to cry out. I would have given anything to scream, but my voice was buried somewhere I couldn't reach, and still, that finger pushed, slow and steady, until I thought my heart would burst. I could feel it, really feel it, pressing on the cartilage between ribs, the tendons tightening under my skin like guitar strings being turned too tight. My entire body screamed silently while it kept pushing, like it was testing how much I could take before something inside gave way. Then, just as sudden as it started, it was gone. I gasped and sat bolt upright, coughing, sobbing, drenched in sweat. My whole body buzzed like it had been electrocuted. I turned on the lamp and stared at the corner. Nothing there, just the busted TV blinking 12 o'clock, over and over and over. My chest burned like I'd been punched. I looked down and I swear to God, there was a bruise forming, one long, narrow mark, center of my chest, like someone had poked me with a cattle prod. I didn't go back to sleep. I got up, downed half a bottle of Pepsi, paced the basement, chain smoked 3 Marlboros. The sun was up and everything was normal. My mom's footsteps above me, the hum of the fridge. I told myself it was a dream. Stress, exhaustion, whatever, but I couldn't shake the weight of it. That thing hadn't just watched me. It had touched me. And worse, it had wanted something. At noon, I collapsed on the couch upstairs, sun blazing through the windows. Safety, light. I figured if it only came at night, I could sneak in a few hours, and for a while, it worked. I drifted into a shallow, twitchy nap, but then I woke up again, still frozen. This time, I wasn't alone. There was something behind the couch. I could hear it breathing, shallow, irregular, like someone learning how for the first time. I couldn't turn around, couldn't see it, but I knew it had followed me, that it didn't care about night or day. It lived in the cracks between sleep and waking, and it was getting better at slipping through. I heard the floor creak, then the soft pad of bare feet on hardwood. I strained to move, to scream, to do something, but I was locked in again, a prisoner in my own skin. Then I felt it kneel beside me, something pressed against my neck, cold, sharp, like a nail or a claw, and it whispered something into my ear. I don't know the language. It wasn't English, wasn't anything human, but the sound of it made my skin crawl. My eyes rolled back. I wanted to vomit. It was like a song made of insects and static. I could feel it threading into my brain, unraveling something I didn't know was loose. And worst of all, there was a part of me that understood, that heard that sound and remembered it. Like a melody you forgot until it crawled back out of the dark. Then I woke up, for real this time, coughing, retching onto the floor. My mom was standing there with a basket of laundry, staring at me like I'd grown another head. I told her I was just sick, that I needed rest. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. That night, I slept with every light in the basement on. I taped a butcher knife under the futon. I turned the TV to static just for the noise, and still, it came back. This time, it didn't watch from the corner. It sat on my chest like a throne. It reached into my mouth with one long finger and tapped the roof like it was tuning an instrument. Then it leaned in close and its mouth opened wide, impossibly wide, and inside was me. Not a reflection. Me. Tied to a chair, screaming. I couldn't look away. I watched my own face twist in agony, heard my own voice echo from the dark, and in that moment, I knew it wasn't showing me a future or a memory. It was showing me what I already was. I passed out before it could show me the rest, if you call it that. In the morning, I quit my job. I packed my car. I drove west without telling anyone. I haven't slept through the night since. I don't close my eyes without something sharp nearby. I leave the lights on. I play the radio loud, but it still comes. Not every night, not always when I expect it, but it's there. Behind the silence, behind the clicks, watching me sleep. And one night, I know it won't just watch. It'll stay.
Subject, Polaroid. User, Easy Rider. Posted, September 19th, 1996.
I bought the truck secondhand, cash, from a guy out in Bolivar. Navy blue F-150, long bed 81 model. It had some rust behind the wells, some sun fading on the hood, but it ran smooth, and the guy didn't blink at the money. That's rare. Usually somebody wants to haggle or pretend to think it over, but not him. He counted it once, signed the title, handed me the keys, and told me to drive safe. Then he turned and walked back into his trailer like he couldn't wait to be done with it. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was 26, just landed a warehouse job back near my hometown and needed something I could haul tools in. That was it. I drove the truck back to Jackson with the windows down, smoking a cigarette and flipping through static on the radio until I found a half-decent classic rock station. It wasn't until a couple days later that I found the photo. I was cleaning out the cab, not even deep cleaning, just the usual dusting off the dash, checking behind the seat, clearing out the glove box. There wasn't much inside. An old insurance card, a gas station napkin, a half-empty pack of juicy fruit, but When I popped open the little compartment down under the dash, right above the fuse box, something slid out and hit the floorboard. A small Polaroid. It was a girl, probably 13 or 14. She was sitting cross-legged on a curb in front of a chain-link fence, blonde hair pulled back, jean jacket, red sneakers. The image was faded, yellowed at the corners and warped from heat. You could tell it had been in there for a while. She wasn't smiling. There was no writing on the back, just a light fingerprint smudge and what looked like a smear of grease near the top edge. Something about it made me uncomfortable. I don't usually get caught up in little things like that. I've found weirder stuff in cars, but this stuck with me. Maybe it was her eyes. They weren't afraid, but they looked flat, tired, like someone told her to sit still and look serious, and she was trying to hold something back. I kept it, tucked it into my wallet. That week, I asked around a little, mostly just to satisfy my own curiosity. At the corner gas station near my apartment, I showed it to the old guy behind the register, and he barely looked at it before handing it back and saying he didn't recognize her. At work, I showed it to a few other guys during lunch. Daryl, who had grown up in the area, stared at it a little longer. "She looks familiar," he said. "Where'd you say you got that?" I didn't. Found it in a truck I just bought in Bolivar. Off a guy named Kevin or Keith, something with a K. Daryl just nodded. He didn't say anything else, but he didn't hand it back right away either. Just looked out past the loading bay like he was trying to remember something he wasn't sure he wanted to remember. Later that week, I brought it up to my mom. We were sitting on her porch drinking sweet tea. I told her about the truck, the photo, and how it was probably nothing but strange all the same. She studied the picture for longer than I expected her to. Then she flipped it over, looked at the back, and finally set it down on the little patio table, face down. "Some things you're better off leaving be," she said. That was the end of it. She didn't want to talk about it again. I figured maybe I'd try to reach the guy who sold me the truck. I still had the bill of sale and a phone number he had scribbled on the back. I called it twice a day for a week. I let it ring 10, 12 times each call. Never got an answer. No machine, no pickup. The next Saturday, I decided to just drive back out to Bolivar. I didn't have a plan, just figured if he was home, I'd ask if he knew who the girl was. The trailer was still there, same as I remembered, but the driveway was empty. No sign of another truck or even tire tracks. Someone peeked through the front curtain when I walked up, but no one came to the door when I knocked. I didn't push it. I drove back to Jackson, feeling like I'd wasted a tank of gas. About a week after that, I was in line at the grocery store, a small place near Henderson. Up by the register was one of those cork boards with flyers and community notices. Most of them were old or sun-faded, piano lessons, a church barbecue, but there in the center was a missing child flyer. A printed photo, in color, laminated, taped to the board. The name at the top was Samantha Cole. She had been missing since 1982, age 13, from Decatur County. It wasn't the same photo I had found, but it was the same girl. Same bone structure, same hair, same jean jacket. The photo on the flyer had her smiling, though, a full grin, braces on her teeth, but it was her, no question. I stood there with the Polaroid in my hand, comparing it side by side. My heart started thudding in my chest. The cashier asked if I was ready, and I told her I needed a second. She gave me a strange look, but I let it go. I didn't take the flyer, but I wrote the name down. That night, I pulled out a map and started marking towns. Bolivar, where I bought the truck, Decaturville, where the girl went missing, Henderson, where I saw the flyer, Jackson, where I live. It wasn't a perfect triangle, but it formed a shape, a route, maybe. Something about it didn't feel like a coincidence. I didn't sleep well after that. Every creak in the walls put me on edge. I started wondering how many people had owned that truck, how long it had been sitting there, whether the man I bought it from was the first to keep that photo or just the last. Eventually, I called the hotline listed on the flyer. Said I had found a photo that might be relevant to a missing persons case. They asked me for a description, then they asked me to bring it in. I drove out to the sheriff's office the next day, gave them the picture, filled out a form, and they asked me how I got the truck, who I bought it from, how long I'd had it. I told them everything I could remember. They merely said thank you and said someone might follow up with more questions if they came up. That was 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything since. I called once to see what had happened. They told me the lead was still being processed and I'd be contacted if necessary. So now I'm just here, thinking, turning it over in my head again and again. That girl, Samantha, has been missing for 14 years, and someone kept a picture of her, not a flyer, not a news clipping, a private, unmarked photo in a hidden compartment of a truck that traded hands more than once, and no one seems to want to talk about why.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.